The Animal Lord is a welcome new addition to D&D that was first introduced in the 2024 Monster Manual. It is an exceptional concept where primal magic and the forces of nature are granted divinity. It is a creature that I, as someone who needed an extra push to play a druid, am very happy now exists. What's up guys, my name is Ethan Liberty and welcome to the first ever Monster Monday. In this series, we're going to be checking out as many of the monsters as we possibly can in the 2024 Monster Manual. I have my copy right here, nice and sleeved. And what we're going to be doing is we are going to be looking at the awesome art, we're going to be reading the lore, and we are going to be checking out the stats of these monsters. I'm then going to give some ideas on how I would use this monster as a dungeon master, or explain why I wouldn't, and what my thoughts would be facing it as a player. In the end, I'm going to rank each and every monster we review, and I'm going to place it on the Ethan Liberty Monster tier list. I am really excited to get started, so let's just jump right into it. First and foremost, like I said before, the Animal Lord is a new creature which, after I did some Googling, apparently was in 2nd edition of D&D, but not 3, 3.5, or 4, or 5th edition. So the lore that I have on hand is relatively limited. However, the lore that I do have is very rich and allows for a lot of storytelling possibilities. The Animal Lords are immortal and immensely powerful avatars of each and every kind of beast and animal there is in the realms. These range from the common creatures to the rare creatures to even extinct creatures like dinosaurs. They can take a variety of forms, however the most common one will be a humanoid animal hybrid form, where they are clearly representing the animal that they are the avatar of. They can also turn into massive versions of said animal, and this would be like a perfect version of it. In both of those forms, their eyes will be glowing very brightly, very distinctly. They also can turn into a completely human-like form, however they will still have some physical characteristics of the animal. No matter the form, they will always retain some amount of the personality and disposition of the animal they embody. However, given their age and intelligence, they are able to, in large part, rein back those natural instincts and act with some level of civility. All Animal Lords fit into one of 3 categories, and these categories change their traits and their actions ever so slightly. The 3 categories are Foragers, Hunters, and Sages. The Monster Manual lists out the 10 most common animals for each of those 3 categories. However, it does explicitly say in the lore that every beast gets an Animal Lord. So if you wanted to include an animal that wasn't listed in the Monster Manual, you can feel free to do so and just kind of use your best judgment into which group it would fit in. Animal Lords typically reside in the Beastlands, however they have been known to sometimes venture into the Feywild. One thing to keep in note though, is that it does say that Animal Lords will typically only ever enter the material plane when there is major environmental crises, or in such an instance where nature itself is being defied badly enough that they feel the need to intervene. So these guys are not going to be casually walking around in some random village somewhere. If you have no idea what I'm talking about when I say Beastlands and Feywild, don't worry, there's a lot of information online, but these are the different planes of existence within D&D. I do plan on doing a video where I go over D&D's cosmology and talk about the different planes and how they interact with each other. That video is going to come out eventually, I'm not too sure when, but look forward to it. When I read this lore, and I've read it many times, my interpretation is that the Animal Lords are more so lesser gods or even demigods. They are immensely powerful, don't get me wrong, and we're going to break down the stats of them, but I don't think that they could go toe-to-toe with someone like Tiamat or Helm. I feel like individually they are far less powerful, and so because of that, I feel like if you ever did come across one Animal Lord, odds are there's at least a few others within the vicinity. I feel like they would move together, and that's probably what makes them really dangerous. Now let's take a look at the actual numbers of these guys. Their stats are incredibly high, with their lowest stat being a whopping 19 and their highest one being a 25. Lowest stat is intelligence, highest stat is dexterity. For reference, the stats in D&D, you have strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. 6 core aspects of your character that dictate a lot of other things. A 10 is perfectly average. A 20 is the highest player characters can get it, mostly. There are some exceptions. So for an Animal Lord's lowest stat to be almost as high as your character's highest stat can be is insane. This alone shows their immense power, and it's reflected even more when you look at their skills. Now, they're only proficient in 4 skills, being athletics, acrobatics, perception, and stealth, which makes sense. They're animals. They're animal lords, so they're going to have to be able to move around very, very easily. Their perception, they have an absolutely ungodly plus 18 modifier for. This means their passive perception, when they're just casually walking around, is 28. A passive perception of 15 is considered very good. So effectively, they are impossible to sneak up on, and even less impossible to sneak up on when you consider the fact that they have what is called true sight, meaning they see invisible creatures as if they were visible. On top of that, they will almost always be one of, if not the first creature to act in combat, given that they have a plus 19 initiative modifier. That means their base initiative is 29. And the way that works is a lot of times DMs won't want to roll for every single monster, and they just need a set number that they can assign, being their average roll. 29 is the average roll of this creature. It can be as high as 39, and that is an initiative roll I have yet to ever see happen organically. They have an AC of 19, which is higher than somebody wearing plate armor, and over 300 hit points. So they're tanky enough that not only will they go first, but they are fine slugging it out with even the strongest of fighters. And since they can swim, climb, and run at 60 feet per round, at any moment they also can just leave. There's nothing really keeping them tied down here. They have several damage resistances and condition immunities, which means that an unprepared party might spend several rounds dealing only half damage before they begin to learn of these resistances, and they might waste precious resources trying to inflict a condition the Animal Lord is just completely immune to. They are strong enough that one Animal Lord is powerful enough to take on a party of 4 level 14 characters. And if you want to challenge the ultimate party of 4 level 20 characters, it only takes 3 Animal Lords. And like I said before, Animal Lords are very seldom, at least in my opinion, going to be completely by themselves. Now, when we talk about the traits, this is where the category begins to matter. Everything we've talked about now is across the board. Every Animal Lord shares that. One thing that they still all maintain is that they have 4 legendary resistances, which means if you inflict a saving throw on the Animal Lord and it has to resist something, if it fails, which it's very unlikely it's going to given it saves, if it fails, it can just choose to succeed. Add that on top of the fact that it has magic resistance, which means it has advantage on saving throws against magic and spells, and not only will your barbarian and fighter struggle to hold their ground, but your spellcasters are going to struggle to have any impact with their magic. All 3 of them also have what is called a lordly presence, which is a 30-foot emanation. It's an aura similar to the paladin's aura. Now, the effect changes based on the category. The Forager's aura charms whoever's within the range, the Hunter's aura frightens whoever is in the range, and the Sage's aura deals 3d10 psychic damage, and reduces everyone within range their saving throws by 1d4. If you're in the range, it's not automatic. You roll a DC 20 wisdom check to resist it. So there is possibility that the aura doesn't do anything to you, except while I read this, I didn't see any indication that a successful save prevents you from being affected again. So you have to roll that at the start of every single turn. You're within 30 feet of these guys. The Animal Lord has two main actions that are spelled out, one being their multi-attack and one being their spell casting. Let's talk about the multi-attack first. The multi-attack allows them to make 2 attacks, and they have 2 options for said attack. They can do a melee rend attack, which has a plus 13 to hit and deals an average of about 21 damage. And they also have a ranged Radiant Ray attack. That is a plus 12 to hit. It has a range of 120 feet and deals about on average 20 damage. Now, the thing about their multi-attack, they can choose to do 2 rends, 2 Radiant Rays, or 1 of each. The rend deals slashing damage and also force damage, and the Radiant Ray deals radiant damage. These are damage types that are more difficult to get resistances to. When they take the multi-attack action, they can also use what is called Animal Spirit, and this allows them to conjure up an animal spirit of the animal they embody to attack a creature within a 120 feet range that the Animal Lord can see. Now, as I'm looking at it, I don't see any indication that the Animal Spirit has to happen after he makes the attacks. I just can tell that it needs to happen once the multi-attack is declared. So the way I would run it is I would say the Animal Lord is going to use its multi-attack and it's going to start with Animal Spirit. That way, like if Animal Spirit fails, you can't then just go to spell casting. It's dependent on the Animal Lord attacking. With that out of the way, let's talk about what Animal Spirit actually does. Rather than rolling an attack, when the Animal Spirit attacks a player, that player rolls a DC 20 dexterity saving throw. So the player has to resist this attack. It does an average of 28 radiant damage on a fail and half on a success. And if the attack hits, one of 3 things will happen based on the Animal Lord's category. If the Animal Lord is a forager, it will regain, or I should say it will gain 20 temporary hit points. If the Animal Lord is a hunter, the Animal Lord will gain advantage on attack rolls against that target until the start of its next turn, which is why I think that the Animal Spirit is designed to happen before the attacks. Finally, if the Animal Lord is a sage, the target that got hit with the Animal Spirit will have disadvantage on all of its attack rolls and ability checks until the end of its next turn. So in theory, this could happen right after the character gets themselves in a dangerous position, and then it's very hard for them to get out of it. Now, when we look at the Animal Lord's spellcasting, we see that its spell list is relatively small, but all very thematic. It can cast Animal Friendship, Animal Messenger, and speak with animals at will. It can cast Awaken and Greater Restoration 2 times a day each, and it can cast Animal Shapes and Sunburst once a day each. Now, this is why I say that I don't think the Animal Lords will ever fight you just one-on-one. Because with Animal Shapes, if the Animal Lord summons 100 different things like snails and chipmunks and that sort of thing, it can turn them all into wolves or maybe even bears. I'm not too sure. They have to be under a certain challenge rating. But very rapidly, the Animal Lord can create a small militia of animals. So when I look at this spell list, I think the Animal Lord is a prepper. They won't start combat immediately. They will watch from afar and study their quarry and then make proper preparations, especially if there is a very large threat that they have to deal with. Now, they don't only have actions they can take, they also have a bonus action. Now the bonus action, I'm not too sure they would ever use in combat, but it is effectively, they can shapeshift into a huge or smaller version of the animal it represents, or a medium or small humanoid, or it returns to its true form, which is that hybrid one. I don't think anything in its stat block indicates that the Animal Lord would go in unprepared for a fight. So the bonus action shapeshift, I think, would be more so a last resort if they needed to get away, or if they needed to rapidly change forms because somehow you managed to catch them off guard. I don't think they would do this unless something went wrong. Now, the Animal Lords are legendary creatures. They aren't the only legendary creatures, but they are up there in power. And because of that, they have what are called legendary actions, which are actions that they can take at the end of any other creature's turn, whether it's an ally or an enemy. They have up to 3 uses of their legendary action, and they regain all of them at the start of their turn. And they have 2 options on how to use them. The first one is Feral Strike, which allows them to move up to their speed and take a rend attack. Now that movement does not provoke opportunity attacks, which means it doesn't matter if all of your melee heavy weapon using players surrounded the Animal Lord. If he's not grappled, he can just run straight to your wizard and start attacking him. The other option is they can simply make 1 Radiant Ray attack. So we've established that the Animal Lords are very, very powerful creatures, and they only show up when things go really wrong. So how would we use them in a D&D game? Well, the way I would use them is through environmental storytelling. Rather than just tell the players that there's some new lich in the south who is creating an army of undead and disrupting the natural balance, an Animal Lord will appear. It might not even care who the party is, but they'll find the Animal Lord, or the Animal Lord will find them. And if there is a druid or a ranger or even an ancient paladin, the Oath of the Ancients paladin, or a totem warrior barbarian, or any other type of class that has any connection with nature or animals, will recognize the Animal Lord as being a divine avatar. This could help send them on a journey to assist the Animal Lord and receive blessings of lesser gods. That's one way I could use it. Another way is when you have a totem warrior barbarian who is selecting his different pathways, those Animal Lords might take notice of this barbarian as they grow in power. If they are embodying the spirit of the Animal Lord itself might take that as tribute and give them blessings from time to time. On the flip side, let's say your party accidentally triggers the cataclysmic event that brings the Animal Lord into the material plane. Those Animal Lords might go after your party. Now, I think as a Dungeon Master, we have a responsibility to never put our players in a completely unavoidable, unwinnable position. So I don't recommend sending, 10 Animal Lords after your level 5 party and saying, oh yeah, well, I guess you shouldn't have done the thing you did 2 sessions ago. I think a better option would be to have a collection of sages, foragers, and hunters. And that way the party can get a little glimpse into the different sides of the Animal Lords. Maybe the foragers want to try and make peace, but the hunters want to kill the party. And so the sages have to kind of broker a deal. And then at the end of the day, since Animal Lords represent primal magic gaining divinity, they can be something that druids and rangers directly worship if they don't worship a specific god. A ranger who's a beastmaster and has a wolf companion might directly worship the wolf Animal Lord and ask for his or her blessing and assistance from time to time. Essentially, I would use these guys as I would use the gods. Never as a get out of jail free card for your party, but another way for your party to interact with the world on a deeper level and feel like they truly live in the world that you create. Because really, there's nothing worse than playing a cleric who you pray to your god all the time and you actively worship and you actively embody those ideals and nothing comes of it, eventually you're just going to stop. And players should be rewarded for interacting with the world in ways beyond just combat. Now, if I was a player facing an animal lord, I would be terrified. Not even because I know the stats, I would be terrified just at the fact that I could assume then every single time I've ever killed a rat or a wolf or a hyena or anything, all of those animal lords could have a personal vendetta against my character, and it might, depending on who they are, radically change who they are and how they act. We now reach the part of the video where it is time to give this monster a ranking. And so now I have the Ethan Liberty Monster tier list. At the bottom, you can see that I have various icons of monsters that we may or may not get to ranking. That is not all of them. Those are just the ones I was able to find this afternoon. And I have the following tiers: favorite, amazing, great, good, meh, dislike, and hate. Similar to my gaming tier list, I can only ever have 3 favorites at a time, and the rest of the tiers can have whatever number of monsters in them as possible. This is very likely going to be a relatively top-heavy list at first, and then we're going to start throwing in monsters that I genuinely really dislike, but feel the need to talk about anyway. Pretty immediately, I think you guys can tell this is a newfound favorite of mine. This monster is really awesome. I think there's so much possibility for helping out the classes that don't really have as much of an in as other classes in some instances. It can kind of be tough to be a ranger or druid and your main thing is communing with nature, and you speak with animals and it just doesn't lead much or lead anywhere because you're expected to talk to the humanoids. This gives you something else to drive you forward and to connect with. I think there's a lot of roleplay possibility here. I think that combat with these guys and against these guys could be really fun. And even as a player, I would love to try to fight this. I feel like it would be very interesting to try to fight this. And as an added bonus, I feel like it would be very cool for dungeon masters who might be a little bit more creative than me to add very small additions to the stat block based on the monster it embodies. So like a spider animal lord might be able to shoot webs or that sort of thing. I think that could also be really fun. So for our first ever Monster Monday, we looked over the animal lord and it is our very first favorite. Thank you everybody so much for taking time to watch this. This is a series that I am really looking forward to doing, but let me know down in the comments below, what do you want to see next? What monster from the 2024 edition should I check out? And I specify that because I'm moving on away from 5e. I loved it. It's a great game, but I want something new. I hope all of you guys are having an amazing Monday evening, and I'm going to see you guys real soon.